Welcome to the Apple a Day podcast. My name is Michelle Apples. If you don't know me, I am the founder of the Christian Singles Hub, a space where Christian singles can be equipped with the resources they need to grow towards greatness, put their faith in action, and to date with purpose. Healthy relationships only come from healthy individuals. So join me every Wednesday as we interview some incredible guests and give you all the wisdom you need to steward your singleness better. We hope you enjoy the show, and don't forget to check out our website at thechristiansingleshub.com. Welcome back to another episode of an Apple a Day podcast. I'm Michelle Apples, your host, and I am so glad that you are here today. Welcome. If you don't know me, I am the founder of the Christian Singles Hub, which is a business I created just to create more spaces for Christian singles. So we have so much coming up, retreats, summer camp, and so much more. So go and check us out on the website if you haven't heard of us. Today, I want to talk about a specific topic around faith, around being prepared, around stepping out in obedience. I think this is so important and something that I have had to learn to muster up, but also how do we stay prepared for what the Lord is calling us to? And I want to take this actually into the book of Matthew. As I was reading Matthew this week, it really stood out to me. And so I want to read a passage and then just kind of break it down in what we can do. Matthew 24:36, it says, but concerning that day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, but the Father only. For as were the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day when Noah entered the ark. So then it goes on to talk about, therefore, stay awake. In verse 42, stay awake, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. But know this, that if the master of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore, you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. And then we go on to chapter 25, and it's the parable of the 10 virgins. Then the kingdom of heaven will be like the 10 virgins who took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. So 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. It says, for when the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them, but the wise took flasks of oil with their lamps. As the bridegroom was delayed, they all became drowsy and slept. But at midnight there was a cry, here is the bridegroom, come out to meet him. Then all those virgins rose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said to the wise, give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out. But the wise answered, saying, since there will be not enough for us and for you, go rather to the dealers and buy for yourselves. And while they were gone to buy, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the marriage feast, and the door was shut. Afterward, the other virgins came also, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered, truly I say to you, I do not know you. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day or the hour. And I wanted to talk on this topic of stay awake, for you do not know. And so yeah, I think it's so important that we be prepared, that we be wise, that we stay awake. What does that look like in our typical day to day? What does that look like in this day and age that we're living in? Obviously, we're not 10 virgins going to light our lamps, and but I think that this is a great context, especially in even dating, in our relationship with the Lord, is what do we need to stay awake for? What do we need to be prepared? How do we need to be prepared? How do we need to be wise in this season? For we do not know when he's going to call us into a different season. We do not know. I've often expressed on this podcast that I've been in a waiting season for quite some time. I've spent 2 years in a bit of a waiting season. And no, obviously I just got married. I'm not waiting for my husband, but it's been a wilderness season. It's been very stretching. It's been very challenging. It's been very hard. But how do I stay awake, stay prepared for what the Lord is going to call me to next. I think number one, staying in your word, regardless of how hard it is. That's where you get wisdom from. I think back to the days of the pandemic when I was in my Bible so much, and I gained a wisdom that I didn't even understand or recognize because it wasn't a wisdom from my own strength. It was a godly wisdom. It was a heavenly wisdom. And just like the 10 virgins, there was 5 foolish ones and 5 wise ones. Where does wisdom come from? Wisdom comes from the word. Wisdom comes from asking the Lord for wisdom. He says, ask for wisdom and I will give it to you without rebuke. And so I think it's important that we ask for wisdom, that we stay in our word, that in this season that we be prepared for what's coming. What does that practically look like? I've talked about this a few times of like taking inventory of my life currently. What does my life currently look like in my spiritual life? Am I lacking in my spiritual life? Am I praying? Am I in my word? Do I ever take communion? What does that look like? And it's not from a legalistic standpoint, but it's from a point of I need the Lord. I need to be in relationship with the Lord. And so I need to make sure that I'm communing with the Lord for that wisdom that I'm going to actually need in that season where the bridegroom comes, and I need that oil, but that oil only came to the wise ones. So I think that's so important. But my health, my physical well-being, taking inventory of that. Am I going to be able to be sustained in what the Lord calls me to? If I am literally sedentary and I'm sitting on my couch all day and I'm eating all the snacks and I'm just watching TV and I'm not moving my body, am I going to be able to run the race and run the race well when he calls me to it? And so making sure taking inventory of the things in our life. Maybe that's emotional, maybe that's your mental health. What does that look like? Are you anxious all the time? He says, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, prayer, petition, thanksgiving to the Lord. And so making sure like we are in the healthiest place. And that doesn't mean being perfect. There is a difference between perfectionism and an excellent spirit. Having an excellence spirit is I'm going to do everything in excellence. I'm going to take this inventory of my life and say, okay, these 5 areas of my life: spiritual, physical, mental, emotional health, financial. What does that look like? Am I out just spending so much money that like when God calls me to do something, I have so much fear attached to it because financially it seems like the biggest burden ever. When God called us to do this US tour, we didn't even blink an eye because financially we had stewarded things well, that we were okay to rent out our places and move into an RV and travel the country. Making sure we're stewarding things well, it makes it so much easier when all of these things, like for example, we got married in September. I definitely let my physical well-being slip, and it was harder to do the things that God had called me to. It was harder to even do a podcast interview because I didn't feel good about myself. I wasn't confident in who I was. It was harder for me to just do the things that God called me to. If someone would ask me to go speak at a church, I didn't feel confident enough in myself because I let this one area slip. Again, it's not being a perfectionist. It's about having an excellent spirit. I want to make sure I'm maintaining all these different areas of my life so that I can walk out what the Lord is calling me to in confidence and expectancy. And so I think taking inventory, and I would advise you to do this: take inventory, sit down, take inventory of all these different areas of your life, and then say, okay, what am I going to practically do to help me thrive in this area, so that when the bridegroom comes, I'm ready for it. I'm prepared. I'm wise. I have the things that I need to sustain me on the journey. And so I think it's so important. He said, like, if you would know, if I knew what God was doing, I would be prepared. Well, I don't know. I don't know what hour he's coming. I don't know. In Matthew it says, like, if a thief came, um it says, if the master of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake, and he would have not let his house be broken into. We do not know when God is going to call us out to something. We do not know when all of a sudden we're going to have an open door or an opportunity present itself. And are we equipped? Are we prepared? So be prepared in and out of season. So what does that mean? Regardless if I'm in that season or if I'm not in that season, I need to be equipped and prepared for the things that the Lord is calling me to. It is so much easier to say yes to the Lord when I'm prepared. If I haven't been in my word, if I haven't been praying, if I haven't been spiritually growing, it's a lot harder to sit here and talk to you all about your spiritual life. It's so harder to host a retreat for Christian singles. We need to be prepared in and out of season. And so I think that's super important. I was asking my husband, like, what should I do a podcast on? What does that look like? And he said, people need to hear about your journey and saying yes to the Lord and hearing him and being able to act on that. And I think that's so important, is like, am I confident to say yes to the Lord? When he asked me to go on this tour, I was like, yes, absolutely, because I knew his voice. I had heard his voice multiple times in the past, and I knew it was him calling me. He confirmed it multiple times. It was a lot easier for me to say yes because I have a history with God. That in that history, I went back to so many times in my life of like, oh, he's called me on tour. Okay, this sounds a little scary. How's this going to work out? Oh, wait, remember that time that I packed up 2 suitcases and my dog and I moved to the US because the Lord called me to? You remember how he provided everything that you needed on the journey? So the next time God spoke and asked me to do something, it was so much easier to say yes. But another element of that is so much easier to say yes when you're prepared for what he is calling you to. I think that this past, when he called us to do the US tour, because we were walking into a season of marriage and transitioning to all that, like, it was a lot harder. But God sustained us, and he reviewed I reviewed my history with God, knowing that he took care of everything I needed along the way. And so now I can rest in that and take comfort in that, even though I'm going through a waiting season, even though I'm going through a wilderness season, that God, oh, he provided here, 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 and here. Okay, I can take that history with God and remember that moving forward when he asked me to do something. But I think, just like the bridegroom, the virgins, we need to be prepared for when the bridegroom comes, when he asks us to do something. How are we being prepared? Are we being the 5 foolish virgins? Are we being the 5 wise virgins? Which one are you? Take inventory. Ask the Lord that this week. God, which one am I? Am I the foolish one, or am I the wise one? Am I preparing myself in this season, even though it looks very sedentary, it looks very bland, it looks very meh, like it's kind of boring, like I hate waiting, I don't like waiting seasons, it's not fun. But am I still preparing myself in this season for what God is about to do? And maybe that is you right now in your singleness, and you've just been sitting and complaining and like not preparing for anything. And once you get, like, if he brings that marriage to you, will you actually be prepared for it? Are you going to be a wise virgin who came prepared with all the tools that she needed for marriage? Or are you going to be the foolish one who didn't come prepared and didn't have anything? And now you're walking into a marriage, which feels very hard and very like so much tension because you weren't prepared for it in the first place. The amount of people that say marriage in the first year is so hard, and that has not been our experience. Our experience was because we prepared so much in our singleness and we came to the table prepared. We both did, not just one of us. We both came and we were prepared to walk together through thick, through thin, through it all. And so just like the virgin, we were wise. We did the work we needed to do. We prepared. We brought what we needed to bring to our marriage to now walk that out and know that we already were equipped for that. And so, yeah, I just wanted to encourage you today on this podcast to really take inventory of your life. What areas are you just feeling you're like coasting in, but really God is asking you to do something right now in that area of your life so that when the time comes, you are prepared for whatever it is that he's bringing you to, whether that's career, whether that's a relationship, whether that's marriage, whether that's a mission that he has for you or a purpose that he's called you to. Like he wants you to be the wise virgin and coming prepared with the oil for your lamp so that he can give you the gifts that he wants to give you. And so, yeah, I just wanted to encourage you with that. It's so much easier to say yes to the Lord when he asks you to do things, when you come in prepared, when you come in and you're ready and you've had a history with God and you know his voice and you know when he's speaking. And so, yeah, I hope that encouraged you today. I hope you take inventory this week and just ask the Lord, am I the wise virgins or am I the foolish ones? And what does he say to you? And what is he asking you to do? What is he asking you to prepare? What is he asking you to work on right now? Sit down, make a list of those areas of your life, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, financially. What are those areas of your life? Professionally, how does that area feel right now? Does it feel complacent? Okay, what is it that you need to take a hold of and take responsibility for? Those 5 foolish virgins, I mean, they didn't have anyone to blame but themselves. And so don't be that person who's going to walk into that next season, whatever God has for you, and be like, wow, I really messed that up. And the number one thing I hear from people who just get married is, man, I really wish I wouldn't have rushed out of my singleness just to get into a marriage, because now I'm married for life. Like I never get to go back there. God willing, I'll never get back to my singleness. And so, how are you using that season to propel you into the next season? So take inventory this week. I'd encourage you just to go to the Lord and pray about it and see what he has to say. What is he asking you to do? How is he asking you to prepare? And one quick tip, just, you might be like, oh, great. That's great for you, Michelle, but I don't hear from the Lord that way. You need to take time and you need to be still and you need to get in his presence and do nothing else. Put your phone away, put your computer away. And I'm saying this to myself too, because I can easily get distracted and I'm very bad at sitting still. But that is the times that I hear from him the most, is when I take time and I soak in his presence. I read his word and I don't have anything else distracting me in the same breath. So I hope this encouraged you today. I hope you take inventory this week, and we will see you next week on another episode of An Apple a Day podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of An Apple a Day. If you liked today's episode, why don't you go like it, share it, subscribe, maybe even send it to a friend, and don't forget to review us. It helps so much. We look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same place on An Apple a Day podcast.